We've got one of the 70 greatest Redskins of all time joining us today. Former Pro Bowler Ken Harvey joins the show. Ken, thank you so much for your time today.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Crazy world we're living in.
That's why it's nice to have sports to talk about sometimes.
You know what? I was telling someone earlier that how important sports is, and you don't realize it, but even with COVID, we needed a sense of normalcy, and sports provided that, right? And so where people think it's only a game and it's only sports, people had something to look forward to on Sundays or Saturdays or whatever, and that kind of will help you help get us through a little bit.
Well, there's playoffs in the air. Can you feel it?
Yeah, you know what? My wife was saying it's exciting, but it's also kind of sad that you can't fully experience it like the Washington team should, given where they started and what all that's gone through. You know, you see almost how parades going down the street, but we're still excited about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, we jump right into it. Speaking of playoffs, what do you think? You know, I know you're a defensive guy. What do you think the Washington team has to do defensively to neutralize Tom Brady?
Well, so, you know, in looking at Tom Brady and the years that I've seen him, one of the things I think from what I can see is that he doesn't like getting hit pressure up the middle, straight up the middle. And so he's not mobile. He doesn't want to get hit. He's aged a little bit, still accurate, still has the arm. But if you can get it to the middle of him and get him to step back, get him outside his comfort zone a little bit, and you know our defense, we've been covering well enough to slow it down. I think if you hit him a few times, then he'll start forcing things because I don't think he wants to get hit and don't think he likes to get hit.
Ken, what does that front four do for you guys that play in the middle of the field there behind them?
Well, when I played, I was kind of one of the front fours on the, pass rushing and all that type of stuff. But what it would do for the linebackers, a lot of things are timing, right? If you can put pressure on the quarterback, then he doesn't have time to do the quick passes, to see the guys that he's looking for, to have time to try to read the whole defense. He has somebody in his face right away. If he has someone in his face, then he's going to be tempted to throw a quick pass. It opens up interceptions. It opens up the opportunity for you to dictate the game instead of him dictating the game. So, I look at this game, and a lot of it's going to be based on the offensive line versus defensive line. Whose line is going to be the best at stopping people from getting to the quarterback? Because if you look on the other side of it, Alex Smith is there, but we all know that he's not as much of a runner as he used to be. And so in the last game, it kind of showed it that if he's forced out the pocket, forced out his comfort zone, he's a lot easier target to get to. And Tampa's going to probably jump on that.
I know you played on some pretty good defenses in your time with this Washington defense, going from the bottom of the league to the top of the league. Do you think it was more the additions of Chase Young or maybe a Kendall Fuller as opposed to or a change of philosophy on the defense, because they still have a lot of the same pieces that they had the past few years?
Yeah, no doubt. It's a lot of the defense is about the attitude, right? If you look at every team, you got to have a certain mixture of players. You got to have those players that are going to talk the talk, but also back it up and get you riled up. The ones that talk the game. You got to have the quiet players that just do their job and do it efficiently and do it well. You got to have, some of those guys that are solid bedrock people that never get into publicity and the fame, but they're the ones that are solid for the team. And so I think with the Washington team, it starts at the top. If you have a coach that said, this is my belief, and if you believe in me and you keep believing in what I'm putting out there, then we're going to win the game. And I think he tried to set the tone early on. This is the type of defense we're going to be. We got these first rounders. You guys, I don't care how good you are, what you are on name and paper, you got to perform. And then when guys start performing, everybody wants to outdo each other. And that's the good thing about when you're young. Everybody wants to outdo each other. It's like, you got a sack. Oh man, I want that sack. And you're fighting for a sack. I mean, that's to me, that's what a great defense is, that everybody's competing against each other to try to get better. And then on the other side of the ball, if your defense is that good and your practices indicate that your defense is that good, then your offense has to be better just because you're going up against one of the best defense. I think some of the teams get into trouble where they have a great defense, but they don't want to go out and practice against a great defense. And so they kind of hold back, and the offense is never used to that type of defense in the game. So, I think you got the right coaching staff, and now you have the right players.
Ken, it has seemed like the defense has gotten better as the year goes along. I'm curious from your standpoint, like when can you tell that a defense is starting to get it, that the communication's right? I mean, how much time does that take? And can you feel it when you're in the practice and on the field?
Well, I'll give this quick analogy, and I know I kind of talk a lot, but like when I used to train, when I used to run, those first couple of weeks, you're running and you're sucking there and you're hating it and you're thinking about quitting and you don't want to do it. But then there's a point where it clicks over, and then you start enjoying that pain and you start enjoying running and you start feeling like, man, I can do this. And you start really rolling. And I think that was kind of the defensive format is, Jack Del Rio's like, you got to believe in us. You're not going to do things like I've seen teams panic because things aren't going the way they were supposed to go, and players feed off of that. If a coach panics and all of a sudden it's like, well, my team isn't doing this, and I got a blitz, so I got to do whatever. You feed off of that. But if your coach is always saying, look, I believe in you guys, you do what you're going to do. We don't have to do anything extra. We just want you to master what you're going to master and do and play your game. Then that's when a team starts doing it, and then you see results. And that's when you have those players that can start yelling, can start saying, hey guys, we can do this thing, and back up their talk. There's nothing worse than having a player that talks the game, but can't back it up.
I know we're talking playoffs, but over your time, obviously you're a former member of the team and, forever,
Appreciate that.
Over the years, obviously this Washington team hasn't been as good as everybody would have hoped for that are fans of the team. How has it been as a former player, just like all of the turmoil going on in the organization, the coaching staff turnovers, the player turnovers? Like, as a former player, like, how do you, as you see that, like, how does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, you're sad for the team in the sense that the potential that's there, and what the team could be. Even with some of the players that they've had in the past, what could be, but you saw pieces and sections missing. And in your mind, you knew, well, if they did this, or if they changed that, or if they almost did, then it would probably work. And so I think the hardest thing is that knowing what the legacy is, and then seeing how far it dropped. It wasn't that you went from great to okay, and you had some good years and some bad years. You had all bad years, for the most part. And that was, you go off of this legacy of, this is a Washington team that dominated, that was a playing team that controlled their destiny to go to trying to pay people to go to the game, to get them in the stands. That's, I think, what hurt most players in my generation and the generation before. That was kind of sad to see it get to that level. But I do think with everything that's gone on, with all the drama, it's finally gotten to a point where changes have been forced to be made. And those changes are good changes that are taking the team in a different direction. I mean, getting Ron Rivera was a result of getting a coach that was finally not afraid to say, this is my team, everybody back away, I'm gonna run it the way I want it to run. And he had that authority because it had gotten so far down the drain. So it's a good thing. It may take some time, but he's showing right now that the team is resilient. And once they go into this season and then the next year, the attitude is, we can do this thing. And that's the hidden part of winning a game, is attitude.
Ken, who was the hardest tackle that you went up against?
Tackle. Ooh. I don't remember half the tackles' names. I mean, I remember, when I played going against Dallas, it was tough sometimes. I couldn't really say, because to me, in my mind, my own little selfish mind at the time was like, I don't need to know your name, you need to know my name. And that was kind of my attitude. So I didn't really pay attention to what their names were. I wanted them at the end of the day to look at me and say, hey, 57, man, you were coming at me. And that's what I had a few times.
And so then
Um,
I assume that you appreciate Chase Young calling out Tom Brady.
I respect it. I appreciate it. The good thing is, like I said, the hardest thing is if you have a player who talks a lot but doesn't back it up, because players feed off of that, right? They want to see you do something. You got a player who said it, and it was innocently enough. He's excited. This is your first year in the NFL, and you're doing all these great things, and you made it to the playoffs, and you're going against one of the best. I understand it completely. Whether it's it's a bold move, right? But it's through the excitement. Brady's a bad boy, and there's no doubt about it. But there's an opportunity for the Washington team to beat Tampa. There are a few things that they'll have to do, but there's an opportunity there.
in all of your years, NFL, college, who would you say, and it doesn't have to be the most popular, obviously, but who would you say was the best player that you've ever played with on the defensive side of the ball?
On the defensive side,
Yes.
so it's hard because it was there were different things and players in the past, like Tim McDonald, who was with the Cardinals back when I played, didn't get all the recognition, but was a great player. Freddie Joe Nunn was a I thought he had I tried to really learn from him how he did his pass rush moves. And then when you came here with the Washington team, you saw guys like Monty Coleman, and you said, that's a man, that's a beast. And so you say, I want to be like that. There are some great players by their positions that made them great. But a lot of times great players are also, it's part of a team. Some players that may have the big name, but they have the big name because what people don't see on the films on Monday is that they were doing everything outside of what they were supposed to do. They may have made the big play, but they had the good team to back them up, to cover their back. So if they went off script, they would still, they still knew each other well enough to back it up. Sound like a politician, right? I'm invading every question, but I'm giving you an answer.
No, you
You,
gave
you know,
you gave some good names. Like, some of the names you mentioned, people may not be that familiar with. That's why I asked. A lot of times people automatically assume you'll go to the big name and not the people who, the grinders, the day in, day out, they just do
right.
their job and they may not get the recognition.
And it depends on, like, what do you consider good? Like, there were good guys. The guys that I mentioned were not only good players, but they were good mentors, right? So my first year coming to the Washington team was probably my best year as far as sack wise. But that was because, I'm working out with Monty Coleman, and when I'm ready to give up, he's like, "Come on, man, get," and he's pushing me. Tim Johnson, who, didn't have a big name, but every time I run off the sideline, he's like, "Man, this is what you need to do. I'm looking at you, and you need to do this." Jim Lachey and Lewis Sharp, and with the Cardinals, in practice every day, kicking my butt, but then helping me up and saying, "Hey, this is why I was able to beat you. This is why, I got you on the ground." Those are the things that you don't see, and that's kind of sometimes what makes a really good team is those underlying things that you may not hear about, but they're the reasons why a team becomes better.
I was glad you said that because I was curious. Uh, the defensive line on this team is where they hang their hat on. In practice, what does that do for the offensive line?
Right. So in practice, it's like, you got to buckle up. Here's like what I've heard. Like the practice prior to this year had been, a lot of them had been soft practices. Us as older guys, older generation, like back in my day, we practiced 5 times a day. But the practices can dictate how the team is going to play. So if you got these all pros, you got these young guys, you got these guys who don't want to take it easy because they're older, and they said they're going to come at you every time, then you can't help but become either better or you'll get beat out. You'll get beat up in practice and made an example of. So you'll get better. And then everything that you go on the field, you've already seen. You've already seen a guy through 3 or 4 moves on a pass rush. You've already seen a powerful guy dragging you and trying to push you back to the quarterback. Your quarterback is being pressured, so he's having to run and think off his, quickly off his feet because he's already used to it. But that also goes to your coaching staff and how they present practice, how the tempo that they want in practice, what they let go by, how much they baby the superstars, all that kind of plays into how well a team does.
Nice.
His attitude. I mean, look, no one's going to touch. I'm sure no one, if you touch Tom Brady, you're probably out of a job, but the goal is they're going to say, you got to get to him. You got to beat the person in front of you and then get to him. And then you put your hands up and say, whoa, champ, I would have got you. But that's kind of the fun part of the game, right? Is you want to beat your guy and then run up to him, pat him on the head and say, hey, boy, I'd have got you. So, that would be a good part of the game in practice.
You mentioned you thought there were 3 keys to coming out of this thing with a victory. Please tell us.
Well, it's going to be it's going to be a line battle. It's going to be offense, defensive line battle. And whoever protects the most and whoever gets to the quarterback the most, they go hand in hand, right? With Alex Smith, he's not going to be able to run out the pocket and throw it off of his feet as much and as quick. So if their defense gets to him early, it could be a long game. Same thing if our defense gets to Brady, like I said earlier, he's not going to want to get hit in the face. And so he'll give up the ball. That's one of his things. Running game, our running game has been good, but it's only been good against bad teams. And so you got 2 teams that depends a lot on the pass and does a lot with the pass, but Tampa's running game is a lot better than our running game at the time, if you go side by side. So it's which running game is going to perform, because if it's all of a passing game, I think like I said, it'll come down to the pass rush, but they're going to try to sprinkle in the running game. Whose running game is going to be the one that's better? And then I think it's those unknown positions, the tight ends they're going to play a little role in this. The Washington, you got all these great receivers that you're going to have to cover. So it's going to be, how well does your linebackers cover Gronk that his safety zone when he throws it and dump it off to him. But on the flip side is, how well are they going to be able to cover our tight end, because that's been our safety zone for right now. And if we could dump things off to him, then that could be a turnaround of the game as well. And then one more thing, like all coaches and all practices, it's who makes the least amount of mistakes and maybe special teams.
We hear a lot about leaders in sports on teams, and you'll have some people say it's overrated and some people say it's important. In your opinion, how important is leadership in the locker room, and does it matter if it's like in the Washington case, I've heard Terry McLaurin is a leader, young guy. How important do you feel leadership is in the locker room?
It's no doubt. Like, one, it's 2 ways. One is the pressure of either being scared or not wanting to disappoint your leaders. You can be scared to death of some guys, and you got to run back to the sideline. And he's looking at you and ready to get in your face, and so you can be scared to death of him, or because of the love and fear you respect, you say, I want to do this for the leader. Then it's also kind of like, I'm sure you guys have been in moments where you're like, God, I don't feel like doing this. And that guy's coming out like, come on, man, we got to do this. We got to finish this. That leader that picks you up mentally when you're down, you need that type of person that keeps you going. So it's as important, as everything. But then at the end, your actions will speak louder than your words. So if you're a leader that just talks the talk but doesn't really do anything, whatever. If you're a leader that said, we got to win this game, and then you go out and you strip the ball and you cause a fumble, then everybody's riled up. If you got a quarterback, with all the injuries with his leg and the whole thing, that's saying, I'm willing to go out there and sacrifice, that's leadership. You got a coach who's, has cancer, who could easily give in and say, it's okay, I'm ready to roll this up, but say, I'm going to win it, and I'm going to bring this team, and we're going to do this thing. That's leadership. So, sometimes you don't have to speak it. It's a lot of your actions as well.
Ken, if we can switch gears real quick, I saw the other day, you wrote a children's book with Terry Crews. I was hoping you'd tell us a little bit about it.
So I've written several children's books, and I wrote one with Terry, and I'll tell you about that one. And then I just wrote one that just came out. So it's 2 different books. The one I wrote with Terry, we wrote it actually 21 years ago, and my boys were 6 and 4. And so, we republished it a year and a half ago, and it was kind of a testament to who Crews is as a person, because 21 years ago, that's a long time. And I call him up and I'm like, dude, this thing's just kind of sitting on my computer and I'm not doing anything with it. I'm praying to God, like, what am I supposed to do with the talents I have? And I go and I look at this book and I'm like, we need to get this book out to kids. And so Terry's like, oh, I love the idea. I'll pay for everything and let's do it. And we're going to do this 100%. It's 21 years. He's a movie star. He has many other things on his plate. He's like, let's do this thing 100%. And then I had another friend who had augmented reality. And so we created the book with using augmented reality, which you can put your phone over the picture and then it comes alive on your phone. It's kind of a, bridge between technology and reading. And then the book that I just did that just came out is called The Me That Needs to Be. And it's about financial literacy as a young kid, so it's kind of like me going back in time and talking to the young me, talking to the middle me, and talking to the older me and saying, if you had money, what would you do with this? Learn the basic principles, put it in 3 jars, your save, your give, and your spend jar. And just learn the kind of basic principles. And even right now, it's like, as I talked about, I'm like looking at the world and you're kind of like, man, there are a lot of people hurting. How are you going to write about a financial book? But then on the flip side, you're like, that's why there's a part about that save jar, a give jar, because there are a lot of people who need, and you want to hopefully be in the position to help people as well as save and spend on things yourself. So the book with Terry is called Come Find Me. We actually have the book. We have a augmented reality game that's coming out, online game that's coming out next year, or this year, I guess. And then the book that's out now is called The Me That Needs to Be. The Me That Needs to Be is on Amazon.com. Come Find Me is comefindmebooks.com. There you go.
He is Ken Harvey, and we appreciate it so much that you gave us some of your time today.
Yeah, no, you guys, like I said, I get to going and you can be like, dang, can this brother shut up, man? But I appreciate you guys allowing me to talk and, just football's over with, but there's, one of the things you learn is that there's so many things in the world that you can do and try to use the gifts that you have. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you for your time. Have a good one.
Okay, we're done recording.
Hold on.
Yes, sir.